1. Well, hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region. This is Brandon from Free State, Colorado, with a special guest, Natalie Menten, one of Colorado's Liberty leaders, here to talk to us about House Bill 24-1311, an egregious attempt by our state government, state legislators, to redistribute our tax money, take it away from people who earned it, and give it to people who haven't necessarily. So, Natalie, really appreciate you taking the time today to come and talk about this bill. How are you doing?
Well, had a rough day. Was down at state capitol testifying on this. So that's the short end. If we're gonna go there. So it's been one of those days that makes me wonder why I do certain things.
Well, really appreciate you showing up and speaking out. Not everybody's able to come down on a Monday, a work day for a lot of people. So really appreciate you showing up, speaking truth to power, looking these legislators in the eye, telling them how wrong they are. So thank you for that. Really appreciate it. And let's get into the bill.
Okay.
So, I wrote on here that this is government sanctioned theft and discrimination. And we want to basically make that case to people out there that that is the case with this piece of legislation. A lot of bad bills going down this year in the state capitol, but this one is just so egregious. It's just so bad. It needs to be exposed. These bill sponsors and the people who vote for this bill need to be called out and need to be challenged. I mean, they really do.
Yeah, it's I want to start with one thought real quick. I know this wasn't inserted, but think about the taxpayers' bill of rights, and that's taxpayers singular possessive. We each, that is a right each of us holds for our choice, our consent, all of those different things. It is not a collective. And it's important to recognize that, because what it sums up in this is that it's treated as a collective fund, a goodwill fund, and that's not how it works. But I wanted to point that out because it was so important. There were many people over years have misspelled Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, trying to make it a plural possessive, and it's not. It's an individual right for each of us. Keep that in mind for everybody who's watching this. There's a reason it's spelled the way it is.
No, that's a great point and something that isn't mentioned enough, that this is a individual right that each of us has as Colorado taxpayers for our money to be kept with us to a certain level, to restrain that government from taking too much. So kind of put this graphic up, we get a lot of new people, a lot of people just getting activated and becoming active in local politics. So Colorado has some of the best legislation to protect taxpayers in the entire country. The Taxpayer Bill of Rights are known as TABOR. Really does a phenomenal job of limiting how much the government can spend, how much they can take from us, and how much they can spend. So, I hear all the time, every day, about how Colorado's become California. Colorado's becoming such a terrible place. But thankfully, TABOR has really prevented Colorado from getting that bad yet. And of course, that's why TABOR is the enemy of so many of these authoritarian politicians who want to take every dime they can and fund their special little pet projects, use our hard-earned money to create the society that they envision. So, how TABOR works, just quickly, when the state collects more money than is constitutionally allowed, they have to refund it. They have to refund it to the people. So they don't have an unlimited bank account with the taxpayer as much as they would like to. So that tax money is seized or stolen by the government, out of your paycheck or sales tax or other ways, property tax especially. That excess revenue goes into the TABOR rebate account, and then that money gets back to the taxpayers. So pretty straightforward. Is that a good explanation, Natalie?
Just two things to say. So TABOR's a wonderful, beautiful thing. I would suggest people who even if might be a little intimidated, think of looking at a piece of legislation, just actually go look at the TABOR text. It is actually really short language, and there's a bunch of benefits besides just the one we're talking about here, with the fact that they are capped at a certain amount of revenue the government can keep. We've also got the right to vote on the taxes, the debt, but there's some other good things within TABOR. So I'd encourage people to look at it, take a look at it, read it. It's not really that complicated actually to read. And then going to where the opener was, where we've got the third part of this transactional flow here that you've got in the graphic, is that when the money goes back to the taxpayers, it is each of those persons' individual right to it. And I just wanted to draw that into it and to explain why I'd started with that concept, that it is an individual protection each of us is to have.
Definitely. No, great point. So you watching this out there, you earn money on your paycheck. If the state collects too much of it overall across the state, then they're going to give you a portion of your tax money back, that money that they took from you. That money should go back to you because you earned it so you can feed your family, pay your bills, pay your mortgage, your rent, provide a good life. That's why you work so hard. So Tabor does so many great things. Thank you for bringing that up. But the only aspect we're really focusing on tonight, on this presentation at least, is that refund mechanism, and really protecting their ability to not take too much and have to give it back if necessary.
Yes.
So just a little bit more background on Tabor. Here we are in April, so a lot of people have probably already filed their taxes. People have probably got some of their tax money back. If you had a tax refund, you got $800 this year from the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. Uh, so Tabor rebate money, it can come back in a variety of ways. I'd say the fairest way, and I think you'd agree with me, Natalie, is to give the money back based on how much was paid. If you paid more in taxes, you should get more of your money back. I mean, it seems pretty straightforward. It seems kindergarten logic right there. Unfortunately, during the past 2 years, maybe even longer, actually, now that I think about it, legislators have forced this flat refund for all taxpayers. So I think it was, especially after COVID, I know they were pushing this, but here's an example from this Senate Bill 003 that was from the special session last year. That was this flat $800 flat refund Tabor uh, mechanism that they passed during the special session last November. So you can kind of see that graphic there if you're interested. Just wanted to give people an idea. Hey, if you made a lot of money, you really should get a lot of that money back. It should be proportional to how much you paid, the 6 tier refund mechanism. But unfortunately, with the shenanigans the state legislators have been doing, they've made it just a flat $800. So, everybody watching this, everybody in Colorado, if you've paid taxes, you probably saw that $800 come back. And regardless of your political affiliation or political beliefs, I bet it was pretty nice to be able to cash that check or see that money in your account and know that, hey, this was money I earned and I got some of that money back. And great, now I can pay my bills and continue on. So perfect.
Yeah.
Anything on this one, Natalie?
Just that thinking about how Tabor, the rebates sure where to work and what Tabor actually reads in it, which is why I suggest people actually go read it. When it talks about the refund mechanisms, there's been a lot of discussion and arguments about that. But the fact is, with our Colorado state revenue, the government revenue across the state, the majority of it, over 60% of it, is from income tax. And so Tabor itself says when it's not identifiable who paid in, how much you paid in taxes, but it's not identifiable, then there are some of these other alternatives. Well, the clear vast majority there, nearing 2/3 of the general fund money came from income taxes. That is identifiable. That is where people can say, I earned this much, I paid this much in, I get this much of the rebate. And that's where this flat refund is both unfair. It's actually a punitive way to treat our taxpayers' Bill of Rights, but we have seen that continuing trend where some people feel that those who earn higher incomes should be penalized for it, which is a total reverse of would promote good and productive society, frankly, because when you're penalizing people for it, how does that work? So that's I'll leave it at that. In that the biggest chunk should be going back to income taxpayers. The gray area with the sales tax, other parts of the mechanism could be coming in there. But the way the legislators are going, which we're going to see here as we proceed on, is that they've completely even gotten away now from this flat refund to just divert it all to where we're going next.
Perfect. So let's take a look at that. So this bill, House Bill 24-1311, is really what we're talking about. If you've followed any of our work before, the fiscal notes on any of these bills is really a great place to start to get that distilled summary of the bill. So reading from that fiscal note, this bill classifies the Family Affordable Tax Credit. How would you say that, Natalie?
I call FATSI.
FATSI, as a Tabor refund mechanism. So the bill decreases Tabor refunds that would otherwise be paid via the 6 tier sales tax refund mechanism and refunds these amounts via the family affordable credit in the bill instead. So you can see that little graphic there from this fiscal note showing that this $655 million for this current tax year is moving from that 6 tier mechanism to the family affordability um, tax credit. And it's even goes up even next year. So $695 million next year, $740 million the year before.
Yeah. So just using the rough figure right there, let's say $700 million, because it's a round number, right? All right. Take that 700 million. And here's what people are not, we're not doing a good job of, and I've got somebody who's going to help make the graphic for this, is that this is not just the 700 million that we're talking about here. We also have the earned income tax credit. We've got the child tax credit. Both of those also playing off of the TABOR refund. And with the three of those combined together, depending on how you want to calculate, you're roughly looking at $1.2 billion. So this FATSI that we're just looking at right now is the big chunk, but you got those other two pieces too. So let's say it's $1.2 billion. Might be on the low end, things get underestimated. And the upcoming TABOR refund is 1.8 billion. So you got 1.8 billion that's supposed to be coming back to us. And now 1.2 billion of that between the three tax credits is going to be taken off the table for the average taxpayer.
Wow. Wow. So just to be clear for people out there that are following along, this money would come back to individual taxpayers, generally speaking, and
Yes.
instead it's being shuffled into this earned or this, excuse me, a family affordable tax credit, this FATSI, as a way to redistribute this money away from the taxpayers, the people who paid it, the people who deserve to get that money back, and towards this other scheme to kind of engineer society in a way that these legislators see fit. So taking our tax money, our tax rebate money, and shuffling it into this tax credit.
Yeah. And let's be really clear at this point right now, thinking about the dollars that are down there, just think of it as like you had in that very first slide showing the flow. The TABOR money is to go into this money set aside for that rebate that we're to all get. If they wanted to do a goodwill program like the FATSI, they could do that. They could do that out of the general fund. That's about government spending priorities. Nothing prevents them from doing a FATSI and using the, let's call it the collective general fund. But that TABOR reserve, TABOR, I don't want to use TABOR reserve because that's actually the TABOR required reserve thing. It also good thing it does. But that TABOR rebate fund, there's no reason that they need to take it from the TABOR rebate fund when they could be doing it out of the general fund. They just don't want to do that. And that's why it's written to this bill. If there is no TABOR rebate or over collected, then they don't fund the FATSI. So it's all about going after TABOR. And all right, let's keep going.
Perfect. Let's move on here. So, some summary of the legislation from that fiscal note. So, starting with tax year 2024, the bill creates a family affordable income tax credit, that's the FATSI, for Coloradans with children. So, this only applies if you have children, which a lot of people these days don't. The credit is available to single filers with the federal adjusted gross income, AGI, up to $75,000, or joint filers with AGI up to $85,000. The credit is refundable, meaning any amount by which the credit exceeds the taxpayer's tax liability is refunded to the taxpayer. So you might not owe any taxes at all, but you're going to get money back. This is a total kind of wealth redistribution, welfare type of scheme here. So the amount of the credit varies depending on the children, as you can imagine. For each child under the age of 6, it's $3,200 for single filers with an AG of $15,000 or less, reduced by 220 for every 5,000. So I won't read through all of those, but just to give people an idea, you're talking $3,200, $2,400, $3,200, $2,400. So your children are becoming little cash cows in the eyes of the state. You know, they're going to give these people who don't make a lot of money, incentivize them, I guess, is a way to put it, for having these children, taking money away from people who earn the money, who paid the taxes in, and then giving it to these people instead.
Well, and again, if they want to do something like this, um, a couple different ways they could be doing. One, take it out of the general fund. Don't touch people's individual TABOR rebates. And two, if they really want to go into something like this, shifting these amount of monies, these programs, they can put it up for the vote of the people. They have done other things like that. And this was in part of the testimony that came up today when I was basically arguing with the chair of the committee that we have in here about Ref C and Prop 123, which I brought up in his diverted TABOR money in the past. And he was arguing about those. And then I thought later, if you really think these things are good and you're shifting this amount of money, tax money around, then put it to a vote of the people. There's nothing that stops them from doing that. When they claim to have transparency, I mean, they don't. These bills get on the calendar and then they sit there and sit there for like 8 weeks. And frankly, people lose track. And then all of a sudden it comes up and it's popping through. You go down to testify. It's like 4 hours before you can even, do that. And then they give you 2 minutes, you know.
Yeah.
How many people are going to go and deal with all of that to testify?
Right. Right. Not many. That's for sure. Jumping to the next slide here. So, as we mentioned, this House Bill 1311 is a tax credit. So, tax credits are paid out even if no taxes are owed. Means these millions of tax dollars. So, your $700 million of tax money, a lot of that's going to get paid out potentially to non-taxpayers, to people who haven't even paid any taxes or, are getting money back already. So, based on those two conditions, you make less than $75,000 a year as an individual tax filer, and you have kids under the age of 16 years old, you're going to get some of this tax money back. So, it's definitely a way for them to, instead of giving it back to everybody in a fair way, they for one, a lot of these legislators, I think it would be fair to say that they hate giving this TABOR rebate money back to the people. They really hate the idea that once they've collected our tax money, that they can't spend it. So instead of giving it back like they should, like they really are supposed to in the spirit of TABOR, they're using it for another program that they otherwise could use with other funds. But hey, if they can kill two birds with one stone, not give us back our tax refunds and fund their little pet project program like this, then it's a win for these legislators.
Yeah, and just speaking on this for a minute, because we talked about paid out to non-taxpayers, there's been a trend over the last 12 months, and there was even an event that I went to attended personally where they applauded a bill that went through, saying they were surprised it went through because the Republicans did not fight the fact that a Social Security number was required to participate in these programs. And there's been that trend here moving. And within this bill, instead of referring to who can apply for this tax credit, instead of taxpayer, it is resident. So if you're not required to have a social security number, but you can go get an ITIN, which if depending on the timing, I mean, these people perhaps are not citizens of the United States, but they are participating in this program, which is basically saying you don't have to have earned income. I mean, like the name of the earned income tax credit, I always use quotations because it doesn't mean you had to have earned or paid anything in. So, I literally use the example of you could have a kid and people may actually make money off gaming and stuff. And this kid who's sitting in a basement and gaming and making, nothing but gets these tax credits. This one has where only people who have kids at a certain age. We should be questioning this more, and there is not, as to what the taxpayers Bill of Rights meant when it said identifiable, and there were certain assumptions. At least it would go back to the taxpayers.
Right. At the very least. Yeah. Yeah, and I can't help but think of, like Ayn Rand or some of these other authors and philosophers and economists over the years. And, I think about people I know. I think about people who maybe worked really hard, work very hard. Maybe they're younger people. They're waiting to have kids till they're a little bit older. Maybe they're in their 20s. They've gone to college. They've worked their butts off. They're making good money. Now, all of a sudden, they're being penalized because of this. They're being penalized and being forced to subsidize these other people who maybe didn't make those same kind of choices. Maybe these people are not making a lot of money because they didn't go to college or they didn't graduate high school. They have all these kids, and now they're getting all this tax money taken from the people who are trying to make good choices, trying to do the right thing, trying to save for their future and plan ahead. And unfortunately, those people are being penalized. And this is the world that's created by this type of legislation. And of course, these economic policies do influence people, and it creates a society that moves in the wrong direction, if you ask me.
Well, to me, it just doesn't make sense to me when there's people that it makes the legislators, the sponsors of this make assumptions about their constituents and based upon certain criteria, but there's discrimination based within that. There's bias. And just going back to the the glory of the wonderful things about the Taxpayers Bill of Rights is it's a fair system applied in the way the author meant it. And the language has been so misread, misinterpreted purposely, ignored purposely.
Yeah.
What's really frustrating is going back down to testify, and this is where I hope maybe to encourage some other people to get involved. When you hear these the Saturday night or no Sunday night legislative bill update that you do, and those bills that are on there, chip in and say some things. And it is so easy to sign up virtually. I prefer to go down there and be eyeball to eyeball, but to be able to sign up when they only give you 2 minutes to testify against bills like these, it just goes through, boom. And for people who are keeping up with this stuff, for them to be able and follow up like a follow-up batter. All right. Think of it that way, folks. Just be ready to be able to chime in. You should be able to get in quick, sign up, get the link, and chime in, because like today's vote was close, and it would help if we had a lot more people who were able to fit within the legislator's schedule to try to fight these things. But what I'm saying is it's pretty easy. And I know you've got a video about how to testify, so people can go to that. It would be really good, because there's just so many things that need to be said to the legislators, even the ones who are going to vote no, to give them the talking points, because I think we can defeat this bill, but it needs more participation and speaking out.
Awesome. No, that's great, Natalie. I love that
I'm
idea
jumping
that,
ahead.
yeah, let's move ahead. Well, let's keep jumping.
No. And
So
then I was jumping to our sales pitch there at the end. And so I guess I was doing like a midway thing.
hey, no, it's great. Yeah, people getting involved, participating in your local government, really having that open conversation with the people who are supposed to be representing your community, where you live, in the state house and the state senate, making them aware of how bad this legislation is and supporting them when they do the right thing, and really trying to challenge them and give them the information about why this is a bad piece of legislation.
It's not fair. It's just not fair.
It's not fair at all.
It's not
How so?
respectful. Um, it's discrimination. All right, let's go.
So the bill status. So, of course, you can go to leg.colorado.gov, type in House Bill or HB 24-1311, get all the information if you want to dig in a little bit deeper. You can see the prime sponsors of this bill. And these legislators, of course, probably think they're saving the world, saving these low income families by giving them tax refund money that isn't owed to them. But nonetheless, shame on Krista Gray Kennedy, shame on Jenny Wilford, shame on Faith Winter, and shame on James Coleman for pushing this unfair legislation that targets families or individuals who don't have kids, or everybody else out there who pays taxes.
Yeah. And if you really believe in it, then put it on the ballot. Don't do it by just your vote. And I say that because maybe they're watching this video eventually.
Yeah, let's hope so. So the bill was heard today, Monday, April 8th. Committee started at 1:30 p.m. I'd love to hear the details about it. It was House Committee Room
No, it
112.
didn't. It started at 2:15 because they ran late. And because of that, then they cut testimony to 2 minutes each person.
So the House as a whole ran late. This is not unusual, especially when there's some contentious bills being discussed. So the committee hearings got pushed back, giving people time to get down there. So you said about 2:15, the committee hearing started. Unfortunately, this bill did pass today on a vote of 6-5. It still has to pass the House as a whole and has to pass at least one Senate committee, and then the Senate as a whole as well. So there's at least a couple more opportunities where citizen output, or citizen input, excuse me, and citizen contact with legislators can make an impact on this. So, Natalie, I'd love to hear about how it was down there. But real quick, I got here the votes on the bill. So 6-5. This was a screenshot. I apologize, it's a little small, from the Finance Committee. So DeGray Kennedy, of course, voted yes. He's a prime sponsor on the bill. Well, Lisa Frizzell voted no. She's a Republican, so expect that. Lorena Garcia, I'm sure, was giddy and very excited to vote yes on this. Hartsook voted no. Kip voted yes, unfortunately, there. Lindstedt voted yes. Bob Marshall voted no. Now, Bob Marshall is a Democrat, but he is one of the ones who is most likely to lose this November. So I imagine he's kind of hedging his bets. He seems to be a little bit more moderate in vote as well, as I know you've seen, Natalie. So not shocking that he voted no. So that was a good thing, a step in the right direction that way. Matt Soper voted no. Ron Weinberg voted no. Junie Joseph voted yes, of course, and Mark Snyder voted yes. I heard that Mark Snyder was potentially the other swing vote, potentially, but I guess I was wrong on that after hearing him in the committee hearing today.
Well, he probably wasn't happy with me afterwards.
So how about we play the video? So Natalie, you were down there, you testified. Let's go ahead and share that
Yeah.
and show people what it was like down there. We're going to share the sound here. Let me know how, hopefully it's loud enough. Let's give it a shot here. And apologies because the volume changed. If you're watching this at home on earphones and it does get really loud, apology for that, but let's see. I'd rather have it more loud than not. Let's give it a shot.
Thank you. My name is Natalie Menten, and I am here representing myself, although I do serve as a board member for the TABOR Foundation and have served many years trying to protect our taxpayers' Bill of Rights. I'll start with the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights. Sometimes people misspell actually the title of that, but it is a singular possessive. It is a singular possessive because part of TABOR is mine. It is not a collective. It is not a goodwill program, and that should be remembered. So let's look at this pile here of what we call TABOR bucks from celebration last year of 30 years of TABOR. And let's just say that this whole pile here is what our TABOR should have been. And I'll get it out here a little bit further. What we have here is what TABOR should have been, an individual rebate of over-collected taxes. But what has occurred over the years, let's start with a big chunk. We had Ref C from 2005. By the way, so that money, here's Ref C. That's over here. We don't get that anymore. Ref C, just as real quick example, over 30 years of TABOR, taxpayers have gotten back $11.7 billion back over 30 years. But due to Ref C, we gave up $33.7 billion, 3 times the amount. That went to K through 12, et cetera. More has been taken. It's just being eaten away. Here's what Prop 123 did. Another $300 million going over for affordable housing, government subsidized housing. So what we have left now is in the upcoming amount, we've got about $1.8 billion. What we have here is a bill, this family affordability tax, which is taking another 40%. You add in the other child tax care credit, along with the earned income tax credit, and basically what that's taking is our 1.8 billion that we're supposed to get, and now it's off the table. Don't get it anymore. How is that fair? How is it fair that you continue to take money from somebody who's making a moderate income?
Okay, Ms. Menten, if you
Individual TABOR refund.
committee, please, that would be very much appreciated.
Thank
We'll hear
you.
from other witnesses and we'll come back to questions. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, sir. I just was
Jody
wanting to speak to
Nickerson.
my representative who said.
Jody Nickerson. Ms. Nickerson, if you.
All right. Well, I love the point you made there, Natalie, in terms of, they keep chipping away, they keep taking more and more of the money that's rightfully ours under our state constitution, the money that should come back to us. And it's not fair. It's not fair at all for individuals to keep losing more and more every year as life gets more and more expensive, especially these last few years in Colorado. Inflation's through the roof, costs are through the roof. So how can it possibly be fair that they want to just keep taking more and more from us?
Yeah, and the chair, after I testified, he came back at me about how are the voters approved Ref C and Prop 123. So really, what was my complaint? I was like, well, number one, recipe was sold as a 5-year timeout from TABOR limits. You didn't really explain to the voters that it was going to reset the cap for what government could keep, so it kept going higher and higher. And Prop 123, and then I complained said, I'm down here and taking time off from work, so I'm not paid to do it. And the people you're going to have lined up to testify in favor of this are paid to do it. There's like 22 of them. And the first ones that get up are Gary Foundation, which we've talked about before, they've got a paid person, and then they have Bell Policy and these others who are paid to do this. And anyway, that was after the recording. So I wasn't very
Wow.
happy. I wasn't very happy.
No, and just to point people to make sure people are aware, Chris DeGray Kennedy, the representative that is representing your community, one of the people on the committee and the prime sponsor on the bill was sitting behind you. And so
Yeah.
that's why you were turning your head to address him directly. Because yeah, he wasn't sitting up in the committee panel desk like he probably should have been. He was out doing something else. So you wanted to make sure he heard what you said. And I think that was
Well,
great that you did that.
well, he did, some sponsors, but they will sit in the audience. But I mean, I should have thought, I wish I'd been able to just express it to the chair a little better that, yeah, Kennedy, number one, is on the committee. So I'm looking at a committee member. I'm also looking at my personal state representative who just continues to want to take more and more of, just the TABOR bucks. Can't you just get back? I wanted to express, is it fair to discriminate, Chris, and look him in the eyes? I mean, that is why I take the time off to drive all the way down there versus doing it virtually, which would be much more convenient. I mean, I don't really enjoy walking along Colfax when I go to, the Capitol, but I want to look him in the eye. And he happened to be sitting behind me. And he knows me very well because we've known each other for about 15 plus years. And he deserves to be looked in the eye when I'm going to tell him that he's basically burglarizing the taxpayers. Because if it was just theft, like theft, you just come out and you tell somebody, burglarizing to me is when you do it and you go down for testimony at 1:30 in the afternoon and it doesn't actually start till 2:15. And then you've got hours of delay and then they skip the bill you've been waiting for and somehow jump to the chair's own bill. If you're waiting longer, and then you're going to get 2 minutes and you know that you're like the oddball in the world who actually went downtown to do this because most other people are working their job. And you want them to know that and look them right in the eye. So
Yeah.
that was a little
Yeah.
bit of a rant there. I'm sorry.
No, please, I applaud you for doing it and taking that time to go down there and speak out, especially for everybody else who wasn't able to make it just because of work or other commitments.
Yeah. So
So
anyway,
looking
I hope I'm
kind of
not
here.
discouraging people.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Because people do feel discouraged. They feel discouraged to show up to get down there and say, "Hey, I told the legislator maybe that how wrong they were. They're my representative, and they don't care. They didn't listen. They were playing on their phone. They were shopping on Amazon. They were out in the hallway. Who knows what they were doing? So it can be discouraging for people, but nonetheless, it's important and it makes a difference. And we need more and more people doing it, especially this. I mean, think about it, people, 6 to 5. It's not like this was a blowout. I mean, there's an opportunity here for this bill to stop because it is controversial, because it's not something that's going to be a slam dunk for the Democrat majority. So kind of bringing back that big point, I think it bears repeating that House Bill 24/1311 is discriminatory, discriminates against taxpayers. I'd say every taxpayer is owed a rebate from TABOR if the state overcollects, and it gives over $600 million, at least in that just first 2 years of our TABOR rebates, only to tax filers with children age 16 or younger. So, it should really be going to everybody who paid in, not just this certain segment of the population, the special class that's created that now gets access to everybody else's money. The Taxpayers Bill of Rights isn't meant to allow pickpocketing someone else's TABOR rebate. I like that, Natalie. And then if the bill sponsors want to create this FATSI program, they can do it out of the general fund and not with our TABOR rebates. So it can be done. There's other mechanisms, other ways for them to do it. They're really just trying to just take away our tax refund money. And it's shameful.
Yes. And just
So
to
yeah.
give a rough figure, because I think we're throwing a lot of numbers, and that was at 600 million, but I've put it at the 700 million because we got 655 and then 695. So it's a lot closer to 700 million. And you again take the 700 million and those two other credits I talked about, just for percentage wise, that is, oh, sorry, gotta go. 60, almost 68%. Here's the easy number. Those three measures take 68% of the upcoming TABOR rebate. And based off
Wow.
projections, they would do it for the next 2 times. Add in whatever they've got, and they're getting very close to, to taking it all. So that just nearly 70% of our TABOR rebates are in jeopardy here.
Wow. So I mean, think about it this way, people. If you're getting your $800 check back, it should be a lot more than that because the government should be giving you back more of what's owed. What is constitutionally restricting them is TABOR. TABOR's constitutionally restricting them from keeping this money, so it should come back to us outside of these little scams that they're running with these little income tax programs. So FATSE is definitely going to deprive taxpayers of their refund money. So what can you do about it, Natalie?
Keep an eye on Brandon Works legislative libertarian bill update on Sunday nights, and keep an eye if you can always just go to the website, the leg.colorado.gov, which is the beginning of that URL you have at the bottom there. There's a bill search, and easy enough, you just type in the 24-1311, and people can keep an eye on that every few days to see if it's scheduled, or go to the calendar. But I would really suggest, especially keep an eye on this Sunday's legislative update, and then the appropriations actually would be seeing this next. So somebody could actually just keep an eye on the appropriations calendar and see it there too. Appropriations,
Perfect.
you can email those people in advance and be vocal in your concerns about the dollars here, and then but you won't get to testify. And then from there, the senators, I don't know what committee it'll go to. I would guess maybe same finance. Those are the options right now. Next is to tell 5 people on either social media or call them up and ask them to send a letter to their local elected representatives that they do not agree with 1311 and the bias that's within it, with 70% of our TABOR refunds up for diversion.
Yes, well said. Well, appreciate the shout out there. Always appreciate it too, Natalie, when you can join us and provide some insight on the bills of the week. We're really trying to give people that opportunity and the knowledge to so they can show up, so they can do what you've been doing, show up down at the state capitol, have a voice, be heard, and try and make an impact. I'd say, it's never too late. Also, contact your representative and your senator. Really start establishing that communication with them. Call their office, send them an email, show up at the capitol, get their personal contact information if you can. They're supposed to be representing you, you as an active constituent, as an active citizen, active voter in the community. They should definitely be listening to you and paying attention to what you and others have to say, especially with this big election year coming up. And, show up and testify if you can. Reach out to those committee members on the appropriations and the committee of the whole as well. And then share this video, get this information out there, and let's get people fired up. It's going to take an active citizenry to really make a difference and start righting this ship, unfortunately.
Yeah, and the other 2 things people just don't think about it unless you say it. Follow Free State Colorado on Twitter and it's Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook.
And then subscribe to Free State Colorado on the YouTube channel, because then it has a really nice feature. I'm usually not one to subscribe, and I actually like the YouTube subscribe thing because it's all in one spot, the things I would like, and I just go in and pick what I want, and it's not annoying, just a little thing on my phone. So subscribe to Free State Colorado.com, Free State YouTube. You'll put up the thing.
Awesome. Well, hey, really appreciate that, Natalie. Definitely can't wait to talk to you again as well about some other legislation, some of the other goings on in our state government. It's going to be another hectic and wild year for sure. So really appreciate all your efforts and keep fighting the fight.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Appreciate it. Take care.